Let me holler at you. 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 Holla, 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 holla.
Welcome everybody back to Teaching Thursdays here in the Black Light section. We're going to cover a part 2 edition of our retirement accounts. We're going to kind of deviate a little bit from the who, what, where, when, why aspect of it all and just kind of give you a couple more nuggets out there that you want to consider. So one thing that you want to know about is when withdrawing from an IRA, which is the individual account, there's going to be a 10% tax penalty if you take the money out before the age of 59 and a half. And that's just because they want to promote the whole savings and investing aspect so you can have something when you retire from your job. However, IRA penalties do have exceptions, and some of them might apply to you depending upon what your situation is. The first one is if you're buying a home, you can actually take out $10,000 without being hit with an early withdrawal penalty. Now you're probably going to be taxed on the income that you earned from it. However, you won't receive that 10% penalty because you're trying to basically shift your assets around and invest in something else for the future. Also, if the holder of the IRA has passed away, then the beneficiary can receive the money and just pay the taxes on the income. They don't have to worry necessarily about the 10% penalty. Next up, if the holder is placed on a disability, permanent disability, then they can withdraw the money out to help take care of themselves and they won't be hit with a penalty also. Next, we have any educational expenses. You might want to speak to the institution to make sure that they're eligible for it, but things like tuition, books, room and board, all these things can be considered to help cover for using some money from your IRA without being hit with a hefty penalty. And lastly is going to be your medical bills. We mentioned about the permanent disability. Well, if you're going to have medical bills that you've had to come out of pocket for, you're able to compensate that money with money from your IRA. So in keeping with the Roth IRA, something to be mindful is that your Roth IRA is going to be your post-tax money. So when you make contributions, you're only going to be taxed in the future on the earnings from it. Now, a great caveat to this is that after 5 years, you can pull out your contributions from your Roth IRA without being hit with the taxes as well as without being hit with any 10% penalty. Now, that penalty is crucial because nobody wants to lose money just for pulling out early. However, different situations happen. We're not recommending saying pulling your money out. But if something does happen, you might need that money. It might be an emergency situation. And you can pull out your contribution amounts without being hit with any penalties or any taxes. And that's just something to be mindful of, but just remember it has that 5-year cap on it. And continuing with these retirement accounts, we're going to get into this 401k real quick and how its contributions are more than the traditional and Roth IRAs. Now, your IRAs are going to have a contribution of about $5,500 a year. It increases a little bit depending upon what age you are. But with your 401k, that contribution is actually about 3 times, and that's $18,000 a year. Now, that's going to be your contributions, and it increases, of course, with inflation, just as your traditional Roth IRA contributions are going to do. Now, when you think about your max contribution you can make per year in your 401k, that amount is actually $53,000, but that amount includes your $18,000 that you put in, plus any of the match program that your company participate in, or any profit sharing that they may be putting into your 401k as well. So that's just something to be mindful of when you're considering with your 401ks, your Roth IRA, any of these retirement accounts, how much you can contribute and what are the perks of having it. In searching for information why the 401k contribution amount is higher than your IRAs, I couldn't really find anything in particular. However, I do think that because some of these employers are usually working with some of these major financial institutions, and these institutions are going to get a payday for managing the portfolios of the company's employees, I think that they've increased their contribution amount just so they can kind of receive a little bit more money on the back end. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in these because, they're trying to make money off of it, but it's just something that you can just be educated on, knowing that maybe this is why the amount is higher than a traditional or a Roth IRA. Now, I'm going to continue to do some research to really find out, but I do think, in my own opinion, that this is why the contribution limit is higher. Now, the last little nugget I want to touch on is a rollover. Now, a lot of times when you have a retirement account, you hear that you can roll over that money into another retirement account. Well, that's exactly what it means. You're just going to transition the money from one account to another account. Usually this happens if you're working for a company, you have a 401k, you can roll that money over into a traditional or a Roth IRA, kind of have it in your own account. That way you don't lose any of the money to a penalty or any taxes. However, there is a stipulation that this rollover has to happen within 60 days. If you don't do it within the 60 days, regardless if you roll over the money to another account or not, you're going to be hit with that penalty as well as with the tax breaks from it. We recommend that you always consult a financial advisor and a tax professional in regards to if you have a rollover situation on your hands, because you want to make sure that you maximize the benefits and you don't hurt yourself or your pockets. That concludes this week's episode of Teaching Thursdays. We touched on more about retirement accounts in this part 2 episode. We hope it gave you a couple nuggets to consider whenever you're dealing with your retirement accounts in terms of how much you should contribute, how you can actually make a little bit more money from your employer by your contributions, and just kind of what are some other benefits to having one account over the other. We're not saying one is better than the other, but you should just weigh these options. Maybe you should have more than one, because a lot of people do. So just take these things into consideration, and we hope it was helpful, educational, and it can elevate your mind in investment areas.